So why then are they pushing such small gliders on these big men?
I don't know why they're necessarily pushing a small size glider, because it is the same model glider that they're trying to sell. I don't know why they don't upsize them to a proper size, other than many of the reflex manufacturers don't have the larger size gliders that bigger guys should have. Secondly, a lot of these dealers have rather high egos, and they think that everybody should fly like them. You know, show-offs, low, doing maneuvers, you know, just basically showing off around the airstrip. That's very, very small percentage of the actual pilots out there. It's probably 2%. It's tiny. As many gliders or packages as we sell a year, which is over 500, we don't get that feedback from people that they want to fly just around the airstrip and fly low and show off whenever there's GoPro cameras that pop out, or any other camera for that matter. The Nitro, the Velocity Reflex glider, is a very, very advanced glider. Frankly, I don't know of another glider that's as agile or as fast as that glider. It's not a glider that we really push. It's very safe for a reflex glider. We make it in sizes 22 to 31. I don't go below a size 22. If somebody wants a smaller glider than that, I would prefer that they go buy somebody else's glider.
So we offer the larger reflex wings for these men that are almost twice my size, in sizes that they should really be flying.
Yes, we do. But keep in mind, when you get a larger size or a smaller size, you've got to consider actually using reflex and speed bar. In other words, if I'm flying a 25 square meter Nitro glider and I go out in reflex, in other words, I let out on the trim, I'm going to have to increase my RPMs to maintain level flight. If I engage the speed bar as well, I'm going to have to add that much more in RPM. The guys that are flying the small gliders aren't letting out their trims, and they're not using their speed bars. They can't. They would plummet from the sky. We've seen it time and time again. Rob Kolb is a great example. He wanted to try reflex, very, very good customer of ours. We put him up on the reflex glider, flew him on one size at 29, and all we heard him over the radio when they let the trims out is, "I feel like a meteor." You know, he dropped out of the sky. When he landed, he says, "That doesn't work because I could never use the reflex. I can't let the trims out. You know, I'm revving my engine. I'm full power." The other thing the next thing is that he went to a size 31. Couldn't believe the difference. So now he gets decent fuel mileage. He can use the reflex, and he's doing a heck of a lot of cross countries.
So we've talked about reflex, its technology, when it's good to fly reflex wing, maybe when it's not. But let's talk about those times where you're flying and you're not on a reflex wing. And let's say you're on a cross-country trip. You want to get past a certain point you've flown over many times before. I've seen more and more people using speed bars. Let's talk about that.
Speed bar is something that we use all the time, free flight. So why not use it PPG? I've been pushing people to use speed bar here the last couple years. For some reason in PPG it was rather daunting or scary, and it doesn't need to be that. Speed bars are great. They're a great tool to increase your speed dramatically, to penetrate into wind. Let's say you leave on a cross country from your home field, which is usually maybe 20-25 miles, 12 miles one way, 12 miles back, or what have you. You leave, and on return the wind is shifted. You got to have a strong breeze. Well, you can go in and use the speed bar and get much, much better penetration. Speed bars are easy to use. They should be used. It's a good, perhaps a jumping point to maybe moving to reflex at a later date. In other words, for instance, the Electra is a really good performing all-around glider. We call it a crossover glider. It's an amazing free flight glider. It's an amazing PPG glider. But when you put that on speed bar, I can keep up with any reflex glider short of them going into full reflex and speed bar.
Well, that's true, because when we were at the fly-in for Discovered Power Paragliding last year, I was on a reflex wing and you were flying the Electra on speed bar, and you were right there with me the entire time.
Yeah, and a well-designed glider that is designed for the speed bar to be actually used are very simple to use. For instance, the Electra is very easy to push out And when you're locking the two pulleys in almost together, you'll feel it engage. In other words, it'll lock in and you can take the pressure off of your legs. What's nice about a speed bar also is you can feel your glider. So if you feel a little uncomfortable or you feel that there's just some added pressure on that leading edge, for instance, ease off the bar. Another safety feature is, in the event of a situation, unlike a reflex glider, with the speed bar you can completely blow that speed bar off. Just completely release it and you're back to a neutral configuration. On a reflex glider, you've got all this trim out, and if something were to happen, you do not have the deftness or the dexterity to reach up and pull the trims in the event of a collapse. And they're probably not going to pull in anyway because the lines are going to be loose. There's no tension on the trim. So that's not going to work. So what are you doing?
Well, you have no choice because you're going to have to wait for that glider to recover.
That's correct. You're going to have to wait for the glider to recover. Speed bar has its advantages for sure. Allows you to fly a normal classic glider. When you really want to fly slow, you got it. When you want to land slow, you got it. When you want to penetrate and go faster, you've got that too. So.
Now I know the Electra, if a person were to purchase that glider, and of course the Nitro, they do come with the speed bar. What about the Edge?
The Edge comes with the risers configured for the speed bar. In other words, they have the pulleys on them. Does not come with the speed bar. Speed bars are about $35.
You know, going back to the point that you made about brand recognition in our gliders, a number of people that call us to purchase a package end up putting a logo somewhere on their glider. Let's talk about that. Why do people put logos on their glider?
Well, often if they own any type of business, landscape business, their attorney, it really doesn't matter. They can put a logo on their glider and write the entire package off as advertising. Pretty smart.
Yeah, that's true. And typically all they need to send us is a vector format of the logo that they're wanting, and for a $75 fee, we can put that logo on their glider so they get an idea of what the design looks like. And then once confirmed, we order it for them.
Correct. And the advantage that we have is we are the manufacturer of the gliders. So the manufacturing facility actually does the logo. It's much less expensive and certainly more professionally done.
That's true, because there was that one time the boys from Jersey wanted a logo that they purchased after the glider. Well, with all those lines getting in the way, it was almost impossible to put on. So if you're considering a glider logo, I would do that ahead of time. That way it's done by the glider shop, looks professional, and you don't have people trying to put it on after the fact.
And make sure you put it on the underside of the glider where everybody can see it.
True. Now, in regards to glider colors, we do offer in the Edge red, orange, blue, and now green. And the Electra red, orange, yellow, green, blue. Same with the Nitro. But one of the biggest questions I get asked is, I'm not sure what color I want, so what is the most visible in the sky? How would you answer that for a customer?
First off, green in the Edge is a color that we can add, but it's not a color that we stock. It's blue, orange, and red. As far as what's the best seller, I think it's all pretty even. I'm amazed at how many blues or oranges or reds get sold. The blue is the least visibility. I think it's pretty darn cool looking glider though. The red and the orange are going to have more visibility. The green has a ton of visibility. As you know, our gliders are colored on the top and the bottom, so they're very, very bright.
Another question that I get asked often is, how long does a glider last? So let's talk about that, the lifespan of a glider.
Well, the first thing to make sure you consider is taking care of your glider. If you land and leave it laid out on the ground and go talk with your friends and talk about how great the flight was, blah, 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 the glider is absorbing UV, and that's not good. So when you're done with your glider, pick it up, put it back in its bag. It only takes a few minutes. Same thing goes for when you lay your glider out. Warm your engine up first, then go lay your glider out, then put your motor on your back and go fly. As far as how long they last, you'll easily get 500 hours out of our gliders. They're all made out of Domenico now, which is the #1 glider textile, which actually comes from our sister company there in Korea.
So you mentioned 500 hours. That's like years worth of flying. So it's quite a long time, and I would assume that in those number of years, technology may continue to advance. So by the time that wing is done, or they're finished flying it, it's about time to get a new wing anyway.
That's true. And one thing I might add is do make sure that you keep it in a cool, dark, dry place when you're going to be storing it for length of time. Also make sure that you use the stuff sack, which allows it to air out, not be compacted and folded and stay folded.
Yeah.
There won't be any creases in the glider, so
right.
to speak.
Some people do ask about that. Do I need to keep my glider folded, how it originally comes in the package, or in the stuff sack? So we like to tell our customers, you know, keep those gliders in the stuff sack. Don't keep them wrapped up really tight unless you're traveling somewhere or you're putting it in your free flight harness. Another thing is when people have flown and their wings have gotten a little damp or moist, make sure that you lay them out so that they dry before you pack them away.
Absolutely.
So basically, the better you care for your glider, the longer it's going to last.
And also make sure that you keep your cells clean. A lot of people don't realize this, but if you get sand or gravel in your glider, which almost all gliders have it in them, as the glider's flying, the trailing edge is fluttering and vibrating, and everything moves to the back. In other words, to the back of the trailing edge. And with all that fluttering and vibration that's going on back there, pretty soon you'll find that you have little tiny holes in your trailing edge of your glider, kind of like a mouse has eaten your glider, and that's from the rocks or sand vibrating, and that's really doing a toll, taking a toll on your glider. So keep it clean, keep those cells clean.
Okay, so you mentioned, you know, rocks in the glider, damage. You know, besides that possibly happening, there are people that have a minor incident and get a little tear in their glider or a snag or a rip. And they've asked us, you know, how do I repair this? What can I do to patch up a hole in my wing, etc.? Let's talk about that.
Another good question. As you know, we do have a glider repair video out there, so you all can watch that video, and it clearly shows you how to repair small tears or rips in your glider. Now what's neat is we're shipping with every glider about an 8x8 section of pre-sticky material glider repair material. In other words, you'll get 3 or 4 different colors with your color glider: green, gray, black, and white. And you can utilize those to make your repairs now rather than like clear glider tape. So you are repairing the glider with the same material. And honestly, those repairs don't really need to go to a professional repair person often. That repair is going to be just fine, and it costs you nothing. In the event you need a more serious repair, at the end of this video we'll put our glider repair person's contact information in there. Glider lines, typically 1-day shipment. If you call us early in the morning, we'll ship them out the same day. So just let us know. Again, you'll need to use your line chart, determine exactly which line you need, order it through Heidi, and we'll have it to you in a day or two.
Sometimes, you know, people, though they may not need a repair, are concerned about if their glider is still suitable for flying because maybe they haven't flown in a while, or maybe they purchased a used wing. In that sort of situation, what do you recommend to customers?
If they're unsure of the amount of use that the glider's had, or perhaps the year, which should be on the placard in the glider, you can certainly send it in to somebody such as Michelle Danielle at Paramotor City, and she can do a full evaluation of the glider. There is a fee, but I think it's a very reasonable fee, and she will test your glider and tell you whether it's safe enough to fly or not.
One of the wonderful things about our gliders, I think, is the riser system. The loop within a loop, the colored risers and lines, etc. Talk about that. Why are our gliders, the Velocity line, designed that way?
For one, many manufacturers color code their risers. And many of the colors are the same, such as the A's on ours are red, the D's are blue. So the strapping will be covered with a fabric that's colored. The A's are red, as I mentioned, they're clearly marked A's. A's, B's, C's, D's. It basically helps for instructional purposes. You know, grab your A's, grab your D's. You kind of systematically remember that the A's were the red ones. Yes, they're the ones on top, but they're the red ones. In the Electra, for example, that has split A's. So you're going to have your first A's, and those are the ones that you use to inflate the glider. Your second A's is only one line that goes to your wing tips, which allows you to perform big ears. which is, if you don't know what big ears are, it's simply a way to tuck the ears, the tips of the gliders down. On the Electra, they will lock down for you and allows you to descend at a much faster rate if you need that. To get out of the big ears, simply pump the brakes 1 or 2, 3 times, and the ears will pop back out, or the tips will pop back out, and away you go. One thing neat about the Electra with the big ears is you can actually land that glider with big ears or steer that glider with big ears. Its big ears lock in, and it performs very, very well.
Okay, so you mentioned the split A's on the Electra, okay, in order to pull the big ears. How do you pull big ears on the Edge?
Okay, good question. The Edge has big ears available, or you can use big ears on it, but it only has the one strap with the A's on it, and the A's always include the big ear lines. Okay, so you're going to have to look and see whether it's the outside line, whether it's the inside line, and frankly it's the outside line, is the line you'll want to grab with your fingers or tuck with your fingers, and you can pull just that line down, and that will lock in the big ears on the Edge. So technically the Edge does have big ears, it just doesn't have split A's. We wanted that glider to be less confusing.
Okay, so we've kind of talked about the risers and the lines and the coloring on it, but let's talk about that loop within a loop system, because if I recall, you're the first to utilize that. So why is that so wonderful to have?
Well, it's an anti-torque system. In the past, we used to adjust our harness, and if you, for instance, your motor torqued to the right, you would let up on the right hand side of the harness, thereby pulling down more on the left side, and that would help balance the glider a little bit. Unfortunately, it kind of made you ride cattywampus in the seat as well, so that wasn't necessarily comfortable. The loop within a loop riser system is simple. Basically, each riser has 2 loops. The red loop is the longer loop. Inside of the red loop is a 3/4 of an inch shorter blue loop. So, in other words, if your motor torques to the right, go to the red longer loop on the right side and go to the blue shorter loop on the left side. It tilts the glider 3/4 of an inch. Bingo, your torque is gone with no effect to your harness. The glider doesn't know that it's flying 3/4 of an inch lower on one side than another. A lot of people have also used their trims to compensate for torque, which is a no-no, because when you let one trim out a little bit and you pull one trim in, it's making the glider fly in one conformation on one half of itself and in another conformation on the other half. That's not good. The torque, or the loop within a loop anti-torque system, simply tilts the glider. Doesn't affect the length of the lines or the conformation, the configuration of the glider at all.
So you're only using that loop within a loop system though when you're on motor. If you were just kiting or free flying, then you would just hook into both the red loops.
Pick either blue or red.
Right.
It doesn't matter at that point.
Okay, so just kind of thinking of the risers in general. I know we've talked about this earlier, but going back up the riser to the whole pulleys. So I've gotten emails from customers that are existing pilots, whether it's free flight or PPG, that really like to utilize the speed bar. So going back to that, one thing they comment on is how easily the line or our pulley system works. So talk about that. What's so great about our pulleys?
Well, they are neat, and what we utilize is sailboat blocks. Blocks in sailboat terminology are what pulleys are. In other words, a pulley is a block, called a block in sailboat lingo. Ours are made by Harkin. They're completely stainless steel. They're 15 millimeter, which they're pretty big diameter, and they have stainless steel bearings in them as well. They don't contaminate. They handle or operate very well with the stainless steel bearings. The fact that they have bearings under a load, which it would be the speed bar, is very, very important. You want a nice smooth engagement of the speed bar. Remember, I talked about the feel. You can feel with your feet what the glider's doing, and having nice big blocks or pulleys it allows you to get more feel and a smoother, easier operation. So all of our gliders, with the exception of the Edge, have the stainless steel pulleys. In fact, the Nitro has 3 pulleys. Very, very, very easy speed bar engagement on that glider.
Okay, so Side topic, but kind of funny. On the field last week, there was about 7 or 8 guys there, and one of them was having a really hard time kiting. It's like he couldn't find the center of his glider, so he was always just off a little bit. So I walked over there and I had him kind of build a wall because there was a decent breeze, and I said, "You see that V there in the center? That kind of indicates," and before I could say the center of the wing, he just goes, "Oh my gosh." And from that point on, he did a much better job kiting and knowing where that center of the wing was and staying under it. So explain why you have that design on the Velocity brand wings.
Yeah, in all of our graphics, we have a center marker, and rather than having a dot on the glider, we utilize the graphics in a V, and that V is the center of the glider. So it does make or allow the beginner to find that center of his glider, stay underneath that center of his glider, because it's clearly indicated where it is. In that fella's case, you know, it happens, and I'm sure he started doing a lot better after knowing that that center, that V, was
Yeah.
the center marker of the glider. But
So we've done some flying at the beaches down in Mexico, all over the coast, and we definitely sell gliders to people that fly the beach very often. So just in regards to issues with sand getting in the glider, and of course rocks, anything else, what kind of adjustment did you design more recently that we started implementing into the electric glider?
in the wingtip, which is where you can shake the sand down to, we have an enclosure. It's with Velcro, and you can open that Velcro and you can dump the sand out via the tip / trailing edge. We made up a name for that. What is it? I can't remember.
Are you serious? Do you want me to say it?
I'm having a geriatric moment, I guess. I can't remember. There's a name for it, right?
You want me to say it out loud? It's technically called a butthole, but it's a way for you to empty out the unwanted material in your glider. And it works very well.
We couldn't think of any other name for it, so we just call it a butthole.
Oh, I thought that was the technical term.
I don't know, is it?
Mm-hmm.
There's a couple different ways that you can get sand out of your glider. One is you can use the Velcro enclosure on the wingtip on the Electra. You can also learn to kite your glider upside down. You're going to turn it upside down, use the D's in place of your A's. In other words, up with the D's, down with the A's, and you can shake your glider out. It takes a little bit of practice, but it does a really good job. The other thing to do is have two people flip the glider upside down, and the key here is to hold about 5 or 6 feet down the trailing edge, each person, and pull against each other tight. And then you can use your other hand and flap out the leading edge of the glider, thus dumping the sand. The key there is 5 or so feet down the trailing edge, pull against each other and keep it taut into the wind, and then shake out the bottom. And then when you lay it back down, you kind of have to tuck your arms like so that the trailing or the leading edge doesn't dig the sand as you lay her back down. That is quite effective. But do check your glider, because as I mentioned earlier, a little bit of sand in there will eat away at the trailing edge of your glider. Also, I have personally had clumps of sand in my glider that could have weighed a pound or two. A pound or two of weight in one end of your glider may or may not be a good thing.
So we've talked quite a bit about our gliders, but one thing we haven't touched on yet is the warranty that you offer. Can you talk about that?
Certainly. The warranty on our glider is 2 years. If there's any manufacturing defects, simply give us a call, let us know what's going on, and we'll get it taken care of for you.
Well, Mike, I really appreciate you taking your time away from the shop to come up and talk with me, because I really feel like this video was important, especially when answering a lot of the basic questions about gliders and what kind to get. So before we close, is there anything else you'd like to add?
I continually go back to the less is more principle. You know, we talked about people wanting to sell you a more expensive glider, saying, oh, this is what you need. And that's really irritating. Really taking money out of their pocket and giving them something that's not going to make them as successful is not good business. You don't need some fancy glider, you know, the next best thing out there, and you don't need to spend more money. You can start off with a glider such as an Edge. If you want to move to an Electra, that's fine. But again, we'll tell you what we would recommend. We're not here to spend your money. We'll let you make that decision. But that's the only thing that's been sticking with me lately is some of the advantages that are being taken of the consumer, and I don't like it.
Yeah, well, really, it should be all about the flying and flying low and slow and just having a great time.
You're spending $8,000, some cases 14 grand. Yeah, the only reason why you're spending that money is to fulfill a dream, and you want to have some fun, and that's what you need to be given. Good instruction, good equipment for a fair price is all you can ask for.
Right.
You should receive.
So if there's anything on this video that we have not covered that you have questions about, please feel free to give us a call on the office line at 209-786-7899, or you can email us. Our address is on the website, or you can go to team@blackhawkparamotor.com, and we'd be more than happy to answer your questions. Thanks for watching.
Thank you.